Well, hey everyone, my name is Daniel, and you are watching Cobwebs Dusting Off Classic Cinema, because this is a YouTube channel where we talk about old movies, and usually in the form of physical media. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to do a haul video of everything that I picked up in the month of April 2021. So every Blu-ray that I bought, and also some Blu-rays that I was gifted, I'm going to be showing to you in this video. We've got some big new releases, but mostly some older stuff, some smaller stuff that I'm just pretty excited to show you that I picked up. Now, fair warning, most of these are blind buys, so I have not seen all but two of these movies, so I'm not going to be able to get in depth on very much. This is really just, if you're interested in seeing what I'm buying, what matters to me to spend my money on, that's what we're going to get right here. But as always, if you have seen any of these movies, I would love to know your thoughts on them. So leave it in the comments below. Tell me which movies I should be prioritizing on my watch list. So let's go ahead and get started with Warner Archive. Another Thin Man. So this is the third Thin Man movie. And if you pay attention to my podcast, the Cobwebs podcast, we actually just did an episode on The Thin Man, the original movie. And I admitted that I haven't gone through all the sequels. I'm a huge fan of the original Thin Man. And I just picked up After the Thin Man as well and watched that. And I think I'm just going to be watching the Thin Man sequels as they're coming to Blu-ray from Warner Archive, assuming they're going to keep going, because there are 6 total Thin Man movies. If you don't know, this is actually a franchise of movies back in the 1930s and 40s, all starring William Powell and Myrna Loy, in which they are a married couple that also solves mysteries, because William Powell plays Nick Charles, who is a retired detective, and Myrna Loy is his wife, Nora, Nick and Nora Charles. And they're just a fantastic example of how great a married couple can be. Like if you're married, they are absolutely goals for you. So, this one is the third movie. Like I said, it comes with a musical short, Love on Tap, a classic cartoon, The Bookworm, as well as a theatrical trailer. I love that Warner Archive Blu-rays often come with cartoons. I just think that's so great. So that's another Thin Man. Very excited to watch that movie. Next up, another Warner Archive release with Dr. X. I was ecstatic when I found out Warner Archive was putting this movie out, and I pre-ordered it like as soon as I could, because this is one of those 1930s pre-code horror movies that I've always wanted to see, but I've always just been holding out for a Blu-ray. I didn't buy a DVD. I didn't pay to rent it on Vudu or anything like that. Yeah, I've just been holding out for a Blu, and I'm very happy I did, because I've heard this restoration is gorgeous. This is actually a Technicolor film from, I believe, 1932. Yeah, 1932. So it's 2-strip Technicolor, which is a very early process to colorize movies. But what's actually pretty crazy is this Blu-ray includes a separately filmed black and white version, originally intended for small US markets and international distribution, which has been unavailable for over 30 years. So that's mind-blowing to me that they filmed this movie twice, once in color, once in black and white. You can watch both versions on here. I'm definitely going to start with the color version, because that is actually the real version. But it's also got a featurette, the horror films of Michael Curtiz, because Michael Curtiz did direct this, along with Mystery of the Wax Museum. Those are 2 big horror movies he directed. But you might also know him from like the Errol Flynn adventure movies he made, like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. You might know him from a little film he made called Casablanca. I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't know if you've heard of that movie. Just joking around. Michael Curtiz rules. He's awesome. And yeah, I'm just ecstatic to watch this movie. I would have watched a lot more of these, but my watch list has been very full of, I should show you the disc, very full of podcast research watches lately. Doing a lot of podcasting lately. So that's Dr. X. All right, so now we're moving away from Warner Archive and moving on to Kino Lorber. I picked up a noir film called Hangover Square. I did not know this was like a big classic beloved movie. Had no idea, but I guess it is. I had 2 recent podcast guests on separate podcasts both recommend this movie to me separately. Those were Rosalie Lewis and Keith Rich. And, when 2 people within the span of, I think, 3 episodes recommend a movie to you, you should probably just buy that movie. And I posted that I bought this on like Twitter and Instagram, and so many people commented saying what a masterpiece it is, how much they love it. So yeah, I guess this is a big noir classic. It stars starring a lot of actors I'm not super familiar with, like Linda Darnell. No, that's not true. Linda Darnell is actually the leading lady in The Mark of Zorro, which is cool. But it's got George Sanders. This is actually a really well-written synopsis. So the star and director of The Lodger team up again for this eerie thriller. The great Laird Krieger gives a staggering, nightmarish performance as an amnesiac London composer, George Harvey Bone, who learns that a murder occurred during one of his blackouts and starts to worry that he himself may be the murderer. Yeah, this sounds very interesting, but it's also kind of packed with special features. It's got an audio commentary by screenwriter and film historian Steve Haberman and actor Faye Marlowe. It's got an audio commentary by Richard Scheckel, who's another film historian. The Tragic Mask, the Laird Krieger story featurette. Oh, it's got like a little documentary feature. I love those. And it's got a vintage radio show performance of the movie that includes Vincent Price. Vincent Price did a lot of noir films in the 1940s, and I don't believe he's in this movie, but he's just in the radio version. You might not know, that's kind of a funny thing that happened back in the day, is they would do radio versions of popular movies on the radio, and sometimes they had the original cast and sometimes they didn't. Very, very excited to watch this movie. Oh, sometimes Kino Lorber has these booklets, and that's kind of fun. See? And you got a whole bunch of posters of a bunch of movies that they have put out. So yeah. All right, sticking with Kino Lorber, we're going to be talking about the Cary Grant collection. So you might not know, but Kino Lorber's actually been putting out a lot of box sets that are actor-centric. Classic films that are actor-focused, like a Cary Grant set. They've got 2 Marlene Dietrich sets. They've got an Audie Murphy set, and quite a few others. Deneen Durbin, I believe, has one as well. And I've never bought any of them. I do have the Westerns collection right back there, but as far as these actor sets, this is my first one. I think my worry has been that they're putting out movies that they don't believe are good enough to sell well to get their own releases. So they're just kind of dumping them in collections to hope people will buy them. That's probably not true. That's probably even an unfair thing for me to even say, but that's just been my worry, you know, and that's why I haven't jumped on these, because they're full of movies I've never, ever heard of. But I'm going to watch all these and see what I think. And we'll do an episode specifically focused on this. I mean, a video. So we've got Big Brown Eyes with Cary Grant and Joan Bennett. The Wedding Present with Cary Grant and Joan Bennett. This one's apparently a pretty typical screwball comedy, which I think sounds great because I love screwball comedies. And Ladies Should Listen with Cary Grant and Francis Drake, which I first thought, is that a sexist title? Is this like a women should be seen and not heard kind of BS? But no, I don't think it is. She is a switchboard operator who kind of listens in on Cary Grant's phone calls and stuff. So that's all that's really referring to. So I don't think it's quite as sexist as I once feared. So that is the Cary Grant collection. Going to watch these movies, and we'll be back to report on them. Also, all of these come with audio commentaries as well, which is pretty great. You know, they don't have to do that. They're just dumping movies out into collections. They don't have to include audio commentaries, but they do, because Kino Lorber cares, and I appreciate that. All right, now we're going to be moving on to Criterion, at least very briefly, Clooney Brown. So this is an Ernst Lubitsch movie that I actually have seen. I rented this movie from my library kind of just because I'm going through Ernst Lubitsch's movies right now and really, really enjoying watching his stuff. And I love this movie so much. I just had to have the Blu-ray. So I bought the Criterion disc. So this movie is about the main character, Clooney Brown, is a very free-spirited young lady who is very individualistic, does not really fit into modern, this time stereotypes of what women are supposed to be. She actually really enjoys plumbing, and a lot of people shame her for that. But, you know, she loves to fix pipes and fix sinks and stuff and work in the bathroom or whatever. Anyway, she meets Charles Boyer is in this movie, and his name is Adam Belinsky, and he is also a very free-spirited, individualistic kind of guy. And he's kind of the only one who understands her, but he's of a higher social class than she is. Now, because she's a little bit odd, she gets sent by her uncle to work as a maid in this really stuffy rich person's house. Well, Charles Boyer, he's actually going by coincidence to just go stay with them just because he's friends. And it causes some conflict in the house because he's upper class, she's just a maid, but he kind of likes her better than he likes anybody else there because they're both odd people and they don't fit in with everybody else. And it's a really, really sweet romance, but it's such a funny movie. Like, I absolutely love Clooney Brown. I am a huge fan. It's a little bit of a later Ernst Lubitsch movie. It's from 1946, but you can't go wrong with any Ernst Lubitsch movie. I fully endorse everything that I've seen from him, which is pretty much all his big movies at this point. I've been binging through them pretty quick. But Clooney Brown is one of my very favorites, and I heartily recommend it. Huge fan of this movie. And there we have got the disc. There's some kind of booklet in here. Let's see what we got. Okay, that's a lot, but we got an essay in here, which is pretty cool. So I will definitely read that. I really like reading film essays in booklets in Blu-rays. Big fan of that. All right, much less prestigious than Criterion, but who cares? I was at the Dollar General. This movie was $5. I picked up Rush Hour, which I think I've seen. I think I saw this movie like when I was a kid. It might have been Rush Hour 2, but I don't even remember it. I like Jackie Chan. It was $5. I'm like, you know what? This is kind of a classic, a 90s classic. I'm going to check out Rush Hour. So I bought that. Now we're going to move on to gifts. So a friend of mine, Nathan Jones from the Nathan Jones YouTube channel, he gave me these for Christmas, and it's a little late for a Christmas present, I know, but you know, a pandemic's going on and I just hadn't seen him in a long time. So I finally saw him in person recently, and he gave me these Blu-rays, which was really nice. First of all, Criterion Collection, he gave me The Big Chill. Full disclosure, just because it's kind of funny, he told me that he accidentally ordered 2 copies of these in a Criterion sale, just wasn't paying close attention and accidentally ordered 2, and they wouldn't take one of them back, so he gave it to me. I probably would have sold it on eBay, but he's a nicer guy than I am, so he gave it to me, which is very, very nice. This is a drama from 1983, and I must admit, I'm very low on my knowledge is very low on dramas from the 80s. I've seen a lot of 80s movies, but it's pretty focused on genre stuff. Horror, action, science fiction, comedy, stuff like that. I've seen a lot from the 80s, teen movie, of course. But I believe this is like an Oscar drama, and I've heard it's fantastic. I've heard nothing but great things about this movie. So honestly, I have no doubts I'm going to love it. It's got an amazing cast of Tom Berenger, Glenn Close, Jeff Goldblum, William Hurt, Kevin Kline, Meg Tilly. I mean, my gosh. So I'm very, very excited to watch The Big Chill, but I haven't yet. So it's one I'm going to have to report back on. The Fantastic Voyage, which is a science fiction movie, I think from the 1960s. Yeah, 1966. It's got Donald Pleasance and Raquel Welch. One of the most ingenious, inventive, imaginative science fiction films Hollywood has ever produced. So yeah, sold. I don't know very much about this movie, but I am very, very interested. Buster Keaton in Our Hospitality. So I like Buster Keaton a lot. I'm nowhere near a completionist with him. Let's see. I've seen The General. That was my first Buster Keaton. And I liked that movie. Very technically brilliant, technically impressive. Not a movie that quite had my heart, but I thought it was very impressive. But then I watched Sherlock Jr. and The Cameraman. Those are 2 movies that very deeply have my heart. Both, again, very technically impressive movies. They've got stunts that are out of this world and filmmaking techniques that are so sophisticated for the 1920s. Because these are silent films, these Buster Keaton films, if you didn't know that. And, but they're also incredibly sweet stories. And just, I cared so much about Buster Keaton's character. So I am now a Buster Keaton fan, and I haven't seen this one. This is a Kino International disc. Yeah. So thank you, Nathan Jones. I'm going to increase my Buster Keaton knowledge now because of this disc. And how else could we possibly end a video like this, but by talking about Come to Daddy? Okay, so this is a recent independent horror movie. I actually saw this in the theater. Both my wife and I saw it together, right before the pandemic hit. I think it was January, February of 2020. And I quite enjoyed it. It's a very quirky movie about a guy who, let's see. Okay, so Elijah Wood, he's described on the back as a privileged man-child. He arrives at the beautiful and remote coastal cabin of his estranged father, who he hasn't seen in 30 years. He quickly discovers that not only is his dad a disapproving jerk, but he also has a shady past that is rushing up to catch up with him. This movie has a lot of really crazy plot twists that I did not see coming, so I'm not going to give anything else away, but it is about a guy reuniting with his estranged father, and a lot of crazy stuff goes down. And I really, really enjoyed Come to Daddy, and Nathan Jones didn't really want his copy anymore, so thankful that he gave it to me. I'll probably revisit this one. Okay, so the only other thing that I picked up is not a movie. It is a record. It is the soundtrack to Sunday in New York. So Sunday in New York is an early 1960s sex comedy that I am just an enormous fan of. I discovered it this year, and I actually bought the Blu-ray after I watched it on streaming. Sunday in New York. It's a Warner Archive disc. And I've watched the movie a couple times already this year, and it's such a comfort movie. It's if you want to watch just a fun, upbeat, comedy from the 1960s with sweet romance, great actors, terrific music, great visuals, like very 1960s, beautiful visuals. It doesn't really get better than Sunday in New York. It's like the perfect version of that. And I love the soundtrack. And I actually found the original soundtrack on eBay from 1964 for $9. And here's the thing, don't judge me. I don't have a record player, but my wife and I have both been wanting one recently, and we've been talking about getting a record player. So I'm like, well, we're going to get one. And this is $9. And I love the soundtrack. I've actually been listening to it on Spotify a lot. So now I have it on record. And you know, when you love a movie so much, sometimes buying that movie is not enough. You have to express your love even more. So it's like, I got to get a poster for it on my wall, or I got to get the soundtrack on vinyl. So Sunday in New York, I cannot recommend this movie enough. Get the Warner Archive disc or watch it on HBO Max. It's streaming on there right now. And yeah, so that's everything that I picked up in April, either by purchase or by gift. Thank you again to Nathan Jones for everything that he gave me. Thank you all so much for watching. Can't wait to report back on a lot of these movies, especially that Cary Grant set. We're definitely going to be talking about that before long. Check out the Cobwebs podcast. We are about to post an episode on Japanese samurai movies, which is pretty cool. No, actually, we already posted that. Yes, so you can check that out right now. And yeah, leave a comment down below. What do you think of these movies? Leave a like. Make sure to subscribe. More cool videos talking about old movies right on the way. So we'll see you next time.